So the first step is after you get the plugin, you need to unarchive it. You're gonna end up with Errant Biomes folder. So select the folder, right click and copy it. After you copy it, the version that I'm using is for Unreal 5.5. So get into the folder engine, then go to plugins, right click and click paste to paste the folder here. After you paste the folder, we're gonna have here Errant Biomes. Then open your Unreal Engine project, go to edit, click on the plugins, go to Errant Photon, and then you need to click here on the checkmark Errant Biomes. After you toggle it on, restart Unreal Engine. Once you restart the Unreal Engine, here in the selection mode, you're gonna have Errant Biomes. And the hotkey for it is Shift+4. After we loaded up the Errant Biomes, what you will have here in the selection mode, go to the selection mode and select Errant Biomes. And here, first you need to enter the serial number, then you need to click Initialize World. When you click Initialize World, the first thing is you need to select the landscape. So I'm gonna go here and select the landscape that we've created. Once we select the landscape that we've created, the first thing is we need to create a biome. So click here on the plus, add element, and then I've created a folder biomes, and I'm gonna right click Errant Biomes and create biome. In this biome, I'm gonna name it EB for Errant Biomes, and I'm gonna name it forest. There is another way to create a biome, whereas you click here at the drop down and click here on the biome, whatever you choose. So this will be my forest, and I'm gonna double click on it. When you double click, you will need to define species in that forest. So I'm gonna add a new element, I'm gonna open this, and I'm gonna define a new species. And here I'm gonna create a new species, and here under biomes, I'm gonna right click, create new folder, I'm gonna name it species. I'm gonna open it, and this will be Errant Biome Species EBS underscore trees. So this species will hold my trees. I'm gonna hit save, and here from the template, I'm gonna select default trees. I'm gonna click OK, and right now we have the Errant Biome species, which is the trees. When I double click on the trees here at the asset group, you have the meshes that we've integrated. Right now we're gonna use this placeholder, which is this tree, and later on I'm gonna change it with Quixel Megascans trees. So let's get back to biomes and drag and drop the biome over here. And then you can select the zone, go here to the selection, and we can select the zone over here where we're gonna spawn our trees. This is for testing purposes, not to spawn everything onto the entire landscape. Then I select this zone and I'm gonna hit generate. Now you can see that in this zone we've generated the trees, and those trees placement is dictated by a noise. So if I select two more zones and then I click generate, we're gonna generate here more trees. You can also do an auto generation. So if you turn this on and start selecting zones, it will start auto generating and placing the trees, which is the sub-biome over here. The first three important things are the index here under the asset group. So if I open, you can see that right now we're spawning these three, but this is an array and we can add as many as we want. Also, going further is the priority. So species with higher priority will always grow over low priority species. Only species with same priority will fight with each other. So here you are defining the priority of the current species. The next great useful thing is the priority radius. So if you hover it, radius in which no object with lower priority can be spawned around instances of the species. So here you can tweak the priority radius in centimeters. And the next one is the spacing between the spawn objects. So right now is 200 centimeters, but if we do 50 and we go to generate, we're gonna have dense spawning over here. So by controlling the spacing, you're controlling how dense this will be. Okay, so right now I've selected this area and I'm gonna work with this area to explain you the noise and the weight maps. So I'm gonna go to setup, and here you can see that we have spawned some trees, but they are following some kind of pattern. And this pattern is directed by the noise. So if you open the noise, here you have noise offset, noise scale, noise minimum value, and noise maximum value. And if you start tweaking, let's say we're gonna put 0.35 and here minus 0.2, and I'm gonna generate again, and the noise will start changing and the random placement of the trees will be different. So if I extend the minimum value to 0.8, let's say, So if we do a noise minimum value of 0.5 and the noise scale of, let's say, 0.8, let's generate again. Every time you start playing with those values, you're gonna generate different kind of patterns, and by controlling the noise, you're gonna have this variety in your trees. But right now they're spawning in the area that I defined here under selection, and we don't have any rules. So if we go under the weight maps, here we can define the first rules. So I'm gonna select sample weight maps, this is for the spawn, and sample weight maps, this is don't spawn. I'm gonna enable both of these, and once you enable them, just click the checkbox on the right, and we enable the controlling through the weight maps. And the weight maps are those maps that are placed onto your landscape. Let's say this is the snow, this is the grass, this is the mud, etc. So now how you can control it. Go to your landscape over here and select your paint layers. And here under paint layers, we have a lot of different layers here for this sample material that is just for the testing. Also, you can find the paint layers into my landscape auto material version 2. And here we have names. This is the name of the layer, FG Snow, BG Snow. So each layer is named. And what we want to do is we can spawn foliages onto a certain layer and exclude other layers. So right now, I'm just going to go back to Errant Biomes. And here what we have is we have here a mud layer. This is my mud layer. We have snow layer. And here we have the grass layer. So I'm going to click plus here to add an element to the array of where we want to spawn our foliages. And here I'm going to put FG snow. All right, I'm going to save it and I'm going to hit generate. After we generate, you can see here that our trees are starting to spawn only into the snow area. So right now the trees are spawned into the snow area, but we also have some trees here in the mud area. How this works is that the layers are stacked one on top of each other. So underneath this mud layer, the base layer is snow. Then on top of it, we've painted the mud. And in order to fix this, you need to exclude the layer that is on top of the first layer. So this is common thing in Unreal. You paint first, for example, the snow, and after the snow, you start covering it with grass. But you need to define those things here in the Errant Biomes. So what I can do here is from the don't spawn, I'm going to hit plus and I'm going to put FG mud. Regenerate again. And those trees will disappear as we are excluding spawning trees into the mud section. And if we reverse this, let's say we copy the mud here, we put the snow here. Let me do the snow. Let's generate. So here in this area, we still spawn some trees. And let's say in this area, I'm just going to paint the forest here. As we want to exclude it, I'm just showing you how to exclude it if you have different layers over here. So let me go to Errant Biomes. In here we have forest, we have mud. And right now we are excluding spawning the trees from the snow, and we don't have here in the snow. But I'm just going to add the other one, FG forest. I'm gonna generate, and this will exclude from my forest. And here we still left a little bit of mud, so I'm just gonna go back to my landscape. I'm gonna select my forest and I'm gonna paint over here just a little bit more. Go back to Errant Biomes and generate again. All right, so this is how you can include and exclude from different weight maps. So let's say we want to spawn at the snow and at the forest. All right, pretty easy. I'm gonna copy and paste this snow. I'm gonna do here the mud, and I'm gonna select the forest. I'm gonna add it here, and I'm just gonna delete this. And now we have spawning here into the forest and here into the snow. And the next step is to start playing with the noise. Let's do 0.5 and let's do 0.25. And we have completely different, spawning based on the noise. The other cool feature that you can auto generate it. So right now, let's say we want to start tweaking the noise and not every time to click here on the button. I'm going to click here onto auto generate and I'm going to start changing the noise. Let's do 0.9. And it will automatically, generate and click that button for you. Keep in mind that this process is heavy if you start tweaking a lot of things, and it will also auto-generate. The other thing that sometimes happen is this generate button is not active, and maybe you did change something here and this button is not active. Hold shift on your keyboard and you're gonna activate it and left click on it, and by holding shift you are force generating again. So after noise, let's cover the slope and the height. So the slope in the species says how you can spawn those trees based on slopes. So right now what we have is just a little, mountain, but that's, very low. And here under slope, what we have here is minimum slope, saying that the minimum that we can spawn the trees is 0. So which means that 0 angle of degree, we start spawning trees. If we do, let's say 0.5 and I go generate, we're gonna spawn only when we have 50% angle of degree. So here we have 50% and we start spawning those trees. So basically what you want to do is you're gonna want to spawn trees on flat surface. I'm just gonna generate. So let's say this is our forest. And the next thing is the max slope. We're saying here at what maximum angle we want to spawn. So let's try with 0.3, which means we're gonna spawn at 30 degrees, and everything and every slope that has around 30 degrees will start spawning trees. Let's do 0.1 and generate again. So right now 10% angle of degree, we start spawning and we are getting rid of the trees in the higher mountain range. So if I do 0.05 generate, we get rid of those two. Here in the minimum slope fade width and the maximum slope fade width, we can control how the fading start between the minimum and the maximum. So if I put 1 over here in the min, you're gonna see some of the trees start disappearing over here, all right? And if I put 1 in the max slope, you see that we start to fading a lot, which is not common. So I'm gonna put 0.1 and we're gonna start fading. Let's try 0.5 and we start here fading. So controlling the min and the max slope, you can control how this species will start spawning onto slopes. The next cool thing is you can control the species to spawn and height. Let's say those trees grow only at the top of the mountain. Right now what I have here is just a cube, and this cube is defining the height of my mountain. Here I can see that the height is 6,000. My max height here is 6,000, which means that I can spawn those species at the max height of 6,000. And the min height says at what height the species can start spawning minimum. So if I do here 3000, we get rid of those. And as we are controlling the slope here, we don't have any trees over here popping. So if I do the max slope of 1 and generate, right now what we can see is that we are spawning trees above 3000 in the min height. If I do here 1000, save, generate, we start spawning the trees from 1000. This is very useful because different species tends to grow in different height, and this can really make a difference into the realism of creating your landscape. If I can start controlling the max height, let's say 4000, I guess you know what will happen. We are not going to spawn any trees above 4000. If I do 2000, save it, generate it, we are just, spawning trees in this ring between 1000 and 2000. And from min height fade, you can start tweaking the fade between them. But this is very useful feature, controlling the height and controlling the slope. So just by tweaking those values, you can start creating very believable environments. So right now we have those ugly trees, and let me replace with something beautiful, and let me show you some other great features that you can do. So let's go to the asset groups here under index, open the assets, and right now we have only one element in the array, which is this tree. I've downloaded the European beach, which is from Quixel, and let me just hook up this tree over here. Let me just hook it up, save it, and generate again. Right now, in just a click, we have beautiful trees spawning over here with some wind on them, but they're too repetitive. So what I want to do is add another element, and let's add another tree. So let me add this tree. Let me save it and let's generate again. And once I generated it, we're gonna have the other trees. And the other cool feature that you have here is asset probability, which means how higher is the probability of this tree to be spawned compared to the other tree. So if I put 0.2, so I'm gonna save it and I'm gonna hit generate. And you can see that the probability of spawning this tree is less. If I put 1 and put 0 here, so 0, 0, 1 is the less probability that we have. Generate, we're going to see only those trees here. So in order for me to create a good balance, I'm going to put maybe this one on 0.3 and this one on 0.8 and this one will go to 1, save it, generate it, and I've created good variation here. So let me just tweak a little bit the spacing. I'll do 150, I'm going to save it, and I'm going to go to the height in under growth mask, height, and the minimum will be 0. So I want to spawn everywhere and I'm gonna generate. And right now we have this, not so cool forest, and I'm gonna start tweaking those parameters. So I'm gonna put 0.6 here. Let's see how it will look. It looks better, but we still have very, big repetition over here. So I'm gonna add one more tree. So let's add this one. So once we spawn this, forest over here, we can go to the asset transform, and here we have rotation, we have scale, and we have location. So let's go to the rotation first. And you here, if I go over here, you can see that we have minimum rotation angle, maximum rotation angle. So if I put here 0, 0, 0, 0, this is for X and Y, and I save it and generate it, you can see that our trees, are straightforward, how they should be, and the forest looks good. So here at the slopes, you can see that our trees, are flying. So what I'm gonna do is go to the location and I'm gonna offset them by Z, let's say -20. I'm gonna save it, generate it. And right now we are putting our trees inside our landscape so we can have this, homogenic style, and we don't have anything here hanging out in the air. And as you can see, we fixed that pretty easily. And right now we have very good dense forest. This is just for spawning trees, and later on in this video we're going to spawn a lot more stuff here so we can have this beautiful forest. Also, what you can do here from the rotation angle, -180, they're rotating the trees, differently, so we can have this different angle of the trees and, variety. And the next thing that you can control is the scale. So if we go here in the scale, we have the minimum scale multiplier and the maximum scale multiplier. So if I go here at the minimum and put 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, and do the max 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, save it and generate it, we're gonna have, not so tall trees, and we have the random between those two numbers. If I do here 1, 1, 1, save it, generate it, we're gonna have those small trees because though this tree is getting into this section like 0.1 or 0.2, and this is not something cool for a forest because you don't have such a small trees over here. Those are looking more like a bush. So what I'm gonna do is the little ones will be 0.5. This is the minimum that they could be, and you can see that right now our forest is getting better and better. If I go here over the top, you can see that we spawn the trees, and here at our peak we excluded spawning around our peak. And here we can see that our trees are spawning and looking pretty good, and our mountain here is excluded from the spawning zone. And you can start, tweaking here by spawning trees more over here or just making them less taller. Let's say something like that, generate less taller, so we can have our peak more visible. All right, and then you can, for example, go to the growth mask, go to the height, and let's say the max height that the trees can spawn is 4,000. I'm gonna save it, I'm gonna generate it, and right now we start spawning trees at our peak. All right. And that's too much, so I'm going to do 150. So let's do it like that, and we're excluding more and more of it. All those tools are very, very handy to work with Errant Biomes. Okay, so I showed you how you can add different assets, how you can tweak the height, how you can work with the weight maps, also how you can work with the transform, with the rotation, scale, and location. The next great feature is that you can mask where you can paint foliages, and let me show you how. So under species, I'm just gonna open it. And under the growth mask, you have hand painted mask. And hand painted mask let you freely paint where you want to spawn foliages from this species or you don't want to spawn. So how you can do that is just enable both of those. And once they're enabled, you just need to pick from here, add foliages, and from here, remove foliage. Then we have a special menu on the Errant Biomes, which is called Mask, and you can go there with clicking over here or using the hotkey Alt and M. So there are two masks. The first one is Add Foliage and the second one is Remove Foliage. So under Add Foliage, let's say I'm just gonna expand the circle. Let's say we want to have foliages in this area. In this area, we will lack foliages. So I'm gonna hit Generate. And right now, the foliages will be spawning only in this area. But let's say here we want to create a road or railroad track for a train. I'm just going to go into remove foliage and I want here to be clean. I'm going to hit generate and I just excluded those. So this is very quick and handy way that you can hand paint where you want the foliage to spawn and where do you want to exclude them. And we are not restricted to just these two masks. We can create as many masks as we want and use them for various tasks. We could, for example, use a mask to control the scale of trees or the type of trees that is spawned. By creating a scale mask, you can control and paint different kind of scales through your level. So right now I have EBM scale under the mask, and here under the brush foreground values, I did put 4. And if I start painting, for example, here, and let's try with 3, because 4 will be too much. And then I go and generate. We do scale only inside this mask. And if I change this to 2, paint again, click generate, it will scale up to 2. So how we achieve that? So the first thing that you need to do is you need to go to the Errant Biome species that you are trying to mask and scroll all the way down under scale, scale mask. Here, double click on the material. When you double click on the material, the first thing that you need to find is biome mask sample. So I'm going to right click and search for biome mask sample. And here on the left, you can select the Errant Biome mask that you've created. To create this mask, it is super easy. What you need to do is right click, go to Errant Biomes, masks, and create a biome mask asset and choose hand painted mask. Click OK and just name it Errant Biome/scale. After you create the Errant Biome mask, select it from the dropdown. So we're using a maximum in order for us to scale and to never scale upon what was originally set in the species. So right now I connected the value 1 to A and the biome mask to B, which will be the scaling one. And this is pretty simple how you can add additional masks to control the scale of the Errant Biomes in certain areas. So if I right click here, clear the data, I'm just gonna clear everything here. And for example, let's change the brush foreground value to 1.5 because I want 1.5 and I want to make here and on this side those trees to be a little taller and maybe somewhere in the middle. And you can see how all the trees in the selection are higher than the previous one that are not under this mask. The other wonderful feature is that we can use very soft brush. So for the brush hardness, I'm going to put 0.12, and for the brush radius, I'm just going to maximize it a little bit more. And if I paint here in the center and generate, you can see how it starts softening the scale from the center to the edges where we have this soft brush. So the idea is that at the center you have the maximum and then you go lower and lower into the scale. The other cool way of using custom masks is, for example, we can paint different kind of assets onto our landscape. So I've created an Errant Biome mask, which is called Asset Selection. So just right click, go again to Errant Biomes, Masks, Biome Mask Asset, hand paint it, and just name it Errant Biome Mask Asset Selection. After that, you can see here that the masks is already presented. And I'm just gonna open my Errant Biomes Dense Forest 1. And we go under species, under assets, there is asset groups. What you need to do is add two asset groups. So here under the first one, I've added this tree, and under the second one, I've added another tree. Now, when we add two different assets, then under asset group mask, we can mask which one to spawn. We can define under the mask asset group based on the paint value, which type of asset we're gonna spawn. So let's double click on the asset group mask. And here what I've done is I just got a biome mask sample. So right click, biome mask sample. And you need to select from here your asset selection. It is always a good idea to saturate, then connect it to your emissive cover. And right now what we will have here is half of the value will be for the second asset group, and the first half, which is the range of 0 until 0.5, and after 0.51 until 1, we're going to spawn the second asset group. So here right now for the brush foreground value, I've put 0.8, and if I paint, let's say here, and generate, we're going to spawn the second asset group. You can see here that we have different kind of trees. And if I switch to, let's say 0.2, and just paint it a little bit like that, generate, you can see that we spawned the first asset group. All right. So based on those values, you can spawn different kind of asset groups. So if I open the dense forest and let's say we add a third one, and let me add one more asset here. And let me just find the folder. Let's, just for the sake of the test, I'm just gonna add this foliage, save it. And right now, how it will be separated? It will be separated by 0.33. So you divide the top, which is 1, by 3, and you have the values for each one of them. So if I put 9.5 and just paint here, this will be my third asset. And as my third asset is very little and we're just spawning some grass, you can see here that we are spawning my third asset based on the value 0.95. My second asset will be until 6.6, so I'm gonna put 5, and let's paint over here 5 like that, and I'm gonna spawn my second asset. And if we put 0.2, paint it like that, hit generate, it will spawn my first. So when you start adding here different kind of asset groups, you're gonna divide one by them, and you're gonna know which type of values are representing the correct asset for you. So for example, let's just switch this to something more big. Let's try with this one just to show that it works. 95, just here, the new trees popping out here. So this is very, very powerful, that you can create different kind of mask for different kind of setup. You can scale, you can asset select, etc. This is super powerful feature to be able to create different kind of masks and they to work differently. Now, the next great feature that I want to show you is Palette. And Palette is very powerful. Let's create one. So you go here under Palette, click here and create a biomask paint palette. I'm gonna click here and I've already created a folder. So I'm gonna call this trees palette. All right, trees palette, save it. And right now we have this trees palette. I'm gonna double click on it. So the first thing that I'm gonna add and create is tree 1, and I'm gonna put a value of 0.1. I'm gonna create one more. I'm gonna name it tree underscore 2, and I'm gonna put a value of 0.5. I'm gonna minimize, and here in this palette we've created, just like in Photoshop, we've created some presets. And what we can do with those presets is we can draw masks over here and just create different species under the palette. So let's go and do this. I'm gonna go into the species, and right now we have the EBS trees. I'm gonna double click on it, and let's see. Here we have this European bleach forest, so this one. And what I'm going to do is under species, I'm going to duplicate this and call it tree 2. All right, this will be my tree number 2. I'm going to open it. I'm going to open the asset group, and I'm going to find this. I'm going to put this one over here. I'm going to save it. So right now we have 2 trees, but here everything is spawning. And this is because if we go back to my biomes, and this is my forest, and open the first biome, I've get rid of the noise, the height map, the weight maps, everything, the hand painted mask. I just turn off everything. Because right now we need to work a little bit with the shader. So I'm just gonna open the shader for my trees, which is the first one. So let's open the shader. And here we need to do some logic. Let's say we want to spawn the tree number 1 under this mask and tree number 2 under this one. So I'm gonna right click and search within range. Within range. All right. Just gonna move this over here. Let me expand it. So we are sampling the add foliage layer in order for us to add different foliages to the different paint masks. So I'm gonna right click, go to the biome mask input and select the biome mask sample. And from here you can select the layers that we want to sample. Either it's remove foliage, but right now we're just creating the add foliage. So I'm gonna select it. So right now we are sampling the value from the add foliage. So when we start painting with this one, we're gonna have value of 0.1. When we paint with this one, we're gonna have value of 0.5. And this sample, we return the value over here. So we're creating the shader for our first tree. So our first tree will return 0.1 as a value. So I'm gonna connect it over here. And I'm going to create 2 constant values. I'm holding one on my keyboard to create a constant, and I want my minimum range for the first one to be 0.09. And I'm going to connect it. This will be my minimum range, and I'm going to create one more. The maximum range will be 0.11. So I'm just telling that in this range between 0.11 and 0.09, this is the one we're going to paint. And I'm just going to connect this add component within range and save it. So in this range, we are going to spawn the foliages that are under tree 1. And those foliages are those ones. So we've created the logic for the first tree species, then go to the second one, open the growth mask, double click here. And I'm just going to copy everything because we're just doing the same. Let me just maximize it, move it like that. Disable it. And the next thing that we want to do is this is the minimum 0.49 and this is the maximum 0.51, and we are just clamping the range into this one. All right, we are just still sampling that foliage. Connect it, save it, save this one, and let's go back to the forest. So forest, right now we are spawning just the first species. I'm gonna add the second one. Go to species, drag the second one, save it. And let me just generate everything. But let me show you right now how this works. We click on the tree and the brush foreground value will change. We paint like that here. We click on the second one. Those are like presets in Photoshop, and we paint over here. And now we click generate and voila. We have the trees from the first mask, which is in the clamp of range 0.1 spawning over here are the other trees. So this is a handy way how you can use the palette, and you can add as many as you want, and by modifying here the shader you can define the values. So from here you can change the brush radius, the brush hardness, so you can make it a lot softer, a lot harder like that. Let's make it a little bit softer. You can change the brush foreground values, you can change the brush background values. From the bottom, you can select brush shapes. Right now we are working with the circle, but another great feature is that you can work with a stamp. So let me show you how you can combine the palette and the stamp. Right now we are using this checker, but here are brush values minimum. Right now we have minimum 0.1, so I'm going to put 0.1 here. And the brush value maximum, which is 0.5, I'm going to put 0.5 here. Let me just increase a little bit the brush size, something like this. And if I paint over here, you can see that the maximum value, let me just go back to the circle and just make it a little less. Here is the maximum value of 0.5, all right, on the stamp, and here is 0.1. And when I hit generate, it spawns the trees that we define here through the palette. Here are the trees number 1, here are the trees number 2. So you can see that you can have pretty much a lot of control and create crazy stuff by using all the settings here that are packed under the mask. And the other thing is that you can use the tiling, which is in world coordinates. So if I start painting, you can see that we are just painting in world coordinates based on the z-axis, and you can paint it like this, like a checker, and it will spawn the trees like that. So pretty handy. You can create any custom, brush here, use it as a tiling, use it as a stamp, whatever you need. And the other useful thing is that you can control the visualization of the mask. Right here you have offset, so if we do 200, you can see that this, visualization we're changing a little bit. You can control the alpha, maybe a little bit harder, something like this. So those are just visual fidelity features in order for you to tweak it as you like. So masks and palettes are very powerful if you integrate them into your workflow. Another cool way to spawn foliages is to sample from Errant Landscape and spawn into the Errant Biomes. The two plugins are connected seamlessly, so let me show you how you can do that. What we have right here is the spiky mountain. I'm just gonna go into select the spiky mountain. Over here we have biome masks. So I'm gonna hit plus, and from here we're gonna need to create a biome mask. I'm gonna right click, go to the Errant Biomes, go to the masks, and create the Errant Landscape Biome Mask asset. I'm gonna name it Errant Landscape Biome Mask _ forest. Then I'm gonna drag this biome mask over here onto the dropdown, and we've connected our landscape biome mask. Another thing that you can do is here from the advanced biome mask key type, you can change it to name. And here when we hit again plus, you can just type the name over here. So I just prefer assets, and from the drop down you can select your biome mask over here. For me this is a better and cleaner way to select your mask rather than typing the name. Now when we open it, here we have a source which is a texture, and we need to define a texture. So I'm gonna open texture, and here on the texture I'm gonna search for tree small mountain deposit. And I'm using this texture because we have these defined white lines, and in the white area we're gonna spawn our trees. And as I selected, nothing is here to see. So how we can visualize it? Let's go to the visualize, and here under preview mode I'm gonna select biome masks. So we're gonna preview the biome masks. So in order for you to enable it, you need to click here on the eye to toggle it on. So as you can see, the mask over here is spreading around this area. So the idea here is that in this area we're gonna spawn our trees. So far so good, we've set up the mask. Let's go to the Errant biome. And our Errant biome, over here we have connected our forest. I'm gonna double click on it, and we have our species, which is a tree. I'm just gonna double click on my trees, and we need to connect the growth mask. So I'm gonna open growth mask, I'm gonna open Errant landscape mask. So we want to spawn in that area, so I'm gonna select the landscape mask spawning, and here we just need to select the mask. So I'm gonna drag and drop my mask that we've created, and I'm gonna save. And the one thing that's left is to click generate. And once it's generated, you can see that our trees are spawning based on the masks. So if I go back to the landscape, and if I go back into the visualize, we can see that those trees are spawning inside the mask that we defined over here. So let's make an experiment. Let's change the mask. So let's do this one. So we're gonna spawn on 3 dots. So I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna go to the biomes, and I'm gonna generate again. Now you can see that we have completely different pattern. And if I go to the landscape again, visualize, we can see that those trees are spawning inside the mask that we defined over here. So in general, depending on what kind of mask you've set up here, you can spawn your foliages to it. One good way of doing this is, for example, if you are using Gaia, you can extract different flow maps from Gaia, load it up here, and just spawn your trees across the maps that you've created. There is also this option about custom mask, and custom masks are separate from the biome mask. And if we go here, custom mask materials, you can create a new custom mask material. However, this is a little bit advanced, and if you want to refer to it, go to the documentation. But in general, the custom masks are used to spawn specific species in a specific area with specific set of rules. Or you can create custom mask materials so you can output their data to biome custom mask assets. Those masks can be used like other mask inputs to control species, subbiomes, or even your game. A little example that they showed for the custom mask is that you can drive the player hazard logic in the game, like detection of what is the temperature in the game area, or get some game information from it. For example, if this game area can make damage to your player, let's say in this game area there is lava and your character enter to it, you can just get the information from the mask and execute the blueprint logic to make damage to your player. This is just a glimpse what it can do. You just need to refer to the documentation because this is a little bit advanced. If we go to the selection panel over here, one handy thing is that right now the selection brush radius is this small. If I hold shift, you can see how I need to deselect everything one by one, and it is a little bit slow. And if I tune up this, for example, 4, I can start selecting bigger area. So depending on your needs, let's say you've created very massive landscape and you want to select a bigger chunk of the landscape, just tune up this and just with one single click select everything that you want. Or if you want to have, fidelity in your selection, you can input 1, which is the lowest, and start selecting chunk by chunk. Also, it can remember the selection components if you turn it on. For example, if you close Unreal Engine and get back to it, the selection will stay. Let's talk about a little bit of biomes and how you can separate different climates into your landscape. So right now what we have here is we have only one biome, which is the Errant Biome forest. But if I add one more, and let's say this will be my procedural example, okay? So we have 2 climates. Think about this as a climate. So when we go under biomes, here we have the forest and we have the procedural. I'm going to select the procedural. I'm going to tweak up the radius of the brush. And I'm going to paint like that. So half is the forest and the other half is the procedural. Let's generate this. And right now what we have here is we have on this side the forest that we've generated, and on the other side we have the procedurals. The idea behind it is that you can create different climates. For example, here is a snow mountain. Here it is blending between snow and green grass. And the other part is a sand. So you can start blending by different climate zones into your landscape. Right now there is no transition between them, but the idea of transition is just to create different biomes and transition with that. So if we go to setup and create a third one, let's say this is the empty example, all right? Let's go to the biomes, empty example. So let's say this is like a desert. Then we paint the grass, the green grass, and from here we have, the snow. And then we just generate. And by feeding the different information to the different biomes, you can create this climate change. So here under biomes, you can define the different climate in your zones. This is working great for huge games. Maybe, for example, you spawn at the beach, then you go into the desert forest, then you travel a few days and you go into the snowy mountains. This is the way how you can mask it out and how you can work with different biomes. So let's take a look at the debug tool. If we go over here under debug, right now we can see different kind of layers. So this is the trees to group. We have the growth mask, we have the rotation, the scale. So right now, let's say if we go to the growth mask, and right now what we see is how this noise is affecting our landscape. So if I open EBS3_2, and let's start modifying the noise scale. Let's say we want 0.8, all right? I'm going to generate, and through the debug panel you're going to see the actual noise and how it's applying onto your landscape. So if we put 0.2, so we can make a drastic change. Now we are scaling it too much, so let's try with 5. And you can see how the noise is getting smaller and smaller. So for the debug panel, the idea is that you can work on your mask, on your noise scale, etc. And here you can visualize it. The other thing right now that we generate is only masks from this drop down. So every time I click generate, I'm just generating the mask and we are not regenerating the biome here. So if I go here and select full generation, hit generate. Now we are also generating the trees together. So depending on what you need, if you need to just debug the mask or just fully generate everything, you can use it from this drop down. Let's say you're just working on the mask, just click only masks and start working with that. And the idea, for example, here in this under scale mask is it's saying that everything here that is, it will start scaling, but you can also apply a mask here and just adjust the scale in different kind of zones. All right, let's step a little further. When we talk about species, let me open the forest. Right now what we have here is we've integrated species, but there is another more smart way how to do a composition of your trees and the grass beneath it and every foliage beneath it, like the bush, grass, flowers, etc. Right now what we're doing is we've put here species and we're spawning species, but there is another way how to do it, and we can do a sub-biomes. So let me show you how to do that. Go to the species, right click under Errant Biomes and click on the sub-biome. I'm gonna name this Errant Biome sub-biome, and this will be my sub-biome of grass, and I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna open it, and here we can define species. The general idea is that you will separate the sub-biomes. For example, a sub-biome could be grassland, forest, or it could be a flowers group. For comparison, a species could be a mushroom, pink flower, yellow flower, etc. So right here under grass, I'm gonna add new species, and I'm gonna duplicate this species, and I'm gonna name it EBS grass. So this will be my grass. I'm gonna open it, go to asset group under index, and here I'm just gonna delete this tree. And under the arrays, I'm just gonna add few grass. So I'm gonna add this grass, another array, this grass, and another one, I'm gonna add this grass. I'm gonna do the probability a little bit different so we can have a little probability in them. All right. So this will define the species of my grass. When I open my sub-biome, this will be my first species. So right now we have the grass, and just I'm gonna duplicate this, and I'm gonna name it Errant Biomes Sub-Biome trees, and those will hold my trees. I'm gonna open it, I'm gonna delete, and here under species I'm just gonna put my tree, and I'm gonna put my tree too. I'm gonna save this, and we're gonna go back to the biomes, Errant Biome Forest, and we're gonna delete the species here, and we're gonna add the sub-biomes. I'm gonna add two. So the first one is trees and the second one is grass. I'm gonna save it, and right now when I generate, we're gonna have two levels of biomes, the grass and the trees. Let me generate it, and now if I start to zoom in, you can see that right now we have grass over here. So this is how you can set up the different kind of biomes. We have the trees, we have the grass spawning. One thing to note is that currently only species have the built-in parameters for their growth mask, such as noise, slope, weight maps. Sub-biomes don't have them. This might come in a future update, but for now you can copy parts of the material from the species and paste it in the sub-biome. This will make the parameters show up in the sub-biome. Open the material, zoom out, select everything over here, and just Ctrl+C to copy it. Then go to your sub-biome, open the sub-biome shader, and here as you can see there is no logic for anything. And I'm just gonna paste this, I'm gonna zoom, and I'm gonna connect this to the emissive cover, save it, and we add all the settings that we have in the species to the sub-biome. And right now you can start controlling noise, slope, height, weight maps, hand-painted masks, and landscape masks, etc. So this is a quick way how you can integrate all the functionality from the species into the sub-biomes. So keep that in mind, that sub-biomes is a great way to organize everything and to separate each level of foliages, talking about trees, grass, mushrooms, or any kind of object that you want to separate and to spawn as a sub-biome. Another useful feature of Errant Biomes is that it can spawn grass or other dense foliage at runtime. Runtime spawning works similarly to Unreal's landscape grass, but is much more flexible and is easier to work with and iterate on. You can customize the placement of runtime species to the same degree as offline species. You can make grass only grow on slopes within certain altitudes or based on masks and weight maps, and you don't have to wait for the landscape material to recompile after each edit, as is the case for landscape grass. Runtime spawning is enabled automatically for species with small spacing, high density, or can be enabled for a species with a single checkbox. Right now what I have here at this chunk is grass, And as you can see here, when we move, the grass is not offloading. But Errant Biomes support runtime spawning, which is one of the most useful features in terms if we speak of optimization. So how to set it up? Right now I have in my forest the species, which is a grass, just for the test. And if I double click on my grass, and you need to go to assets, and in the instances settings, we have runtime spawning. Right now it is never, and you have two more options, always to runtime spawn or auto. So if we want always to use the runtime spawn, just click always. Otherwise you can set up the auto. Let's try always, save, and then let's generate. And when we start zooming out the camera, you can see that right now we start offloading the chunks of the grass. This is great for performance optimization, so very important feature that it should worth mentioning. Another handy tab is the tools. Here, if you for any reason something is not working and it's not generating, you can force generate, you can clear the persisting state of cache, or you can remove the unreferenced biome assets. So for any reason, if something is broken, not generating, or something is broken with your cache, from the tools, from those three buttons, you can force generate, clear the cache, or remove the unreferenced biome assets. Also, you can update the registry tags, clear the mask based on the species, or freeze selected components. The freeze selected components is you can select, for example, this part, and as we selected this part, we can go to tools and freeze the selected components. Freezing the selected components means that on this chunk you won't be able to work until you unfreeze it. The idea here is that if one chunk inside your open world big landscape is ready and you don't want to touch it, you can freeze it. Now let's say that right now the grass is spawning on top of the trees. So you can see that we have grass inside this tree, we have grass inside this tree. What we can do is we can set priority and radius. So if I open the grass, under priority we have priority 50 and priority radius of 0.0 centimeters. We're going to open the tree number 2. And in the tree number 2, I'm going to put priority 100, meaning that this is with higher priority and it overlaps the grass. I'm going to put radius of 150. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to do the same for the other tree, priority 100 and 150 centimeters in terms of radius. And watch what happens now. So I'm going to minimize this and let me regenerate. Once the generation is done, you can see that now the grass is not spawning in radius of 150 centimeters around the trees. And this is creating this natural feel. Right now it's too much, but you can lower it down, and maybe you can place some other, sub-biomes over here that is spawning around the tree, maybe leaves, maybe dark, ground or something like this. And this is very handy because when you enter the forest, everything looks more natural when you have this breakup between grass and trees and not spawning inside the trees. So from here, from the priority, you can set up the different priorities per species and how the priority radius working in order to exclude the other species. And two more important things to mention. In Errant Biomes, you can have instanceable blueprints. They recommend spawning the content of the blueprint as instances. Blueprints spawned this way are as efficient as normal mesh instances. What this means is that in a blueprint you can stack, for example, rocks like that, and then you can place the blueprint inside your species trees. And this blueprint can include any blueprint logic, can include particle systems, anything. And then it will spawn your blueprints over here across the level, and all the rules that we've set up will work for this blueprint too. And for example, here in this cactus, you have point light, you have effect, you have a static mesh. And when you load it up into the species and generate, it will spawn the cactuses with everything inside. So this is also a very powerful way to populate your world with different things that are interactable or have some particle effects or light. And finally, Errant Biomes also provide PCG integration. So you can connect those two systems to work together, PCG and Errant Biomes. Also in the PCG, they've created Errant Biome masks, so you can access all the masks for the species, Sub-Biomes, hand-painted, Errant landscape, and Errant paths by using the Errant Biome mask node in PCG and start extracting information from it. You can also access generated transform points from species by using the Errant Biome species points node. So the guys behind Errant Photon also create custom PCG nodes that you can spawn in your PCG graph and get the information from Errant Biomes and use the information from Errant Biomes. And if you want to know more, refer to the documentation under the PCG section.